Welcome to the 2717 podcast. I'm Javier, an authentic wedding filmmaker.
And I'm Ashley, a passionate wedding photographer.
We're here to bring Proverbs 27:17 to the wedding industry. As iron sharpens iron,
so one person sharpens another. In this fun series, we're all about sharing experiences and building a community.
expect heartfelt stories, creative inspiration, and some amazing behind-the-scene moments.
Plus, insights from some truly inspiring guests.
Tune in to connect with us, spark your creativity,
and be a part of a supportive community.
You're listening to the 2717 podcast.
We're thrilled to record our podcast in the beautiful studio provided by Love K Collective, where self-love meets stunning photography. If you're looking to celebrate your unique beauty through empowering portraits, boudoir, or maternity shoots, Kayla offers an experience that's as uplifting as it is professional. Visit lovekcollective.com to book your session today and capture the essence of you. A big thank you to Love K Collective for supporting our creative journey. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 2717 podcast. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Javier, and today we have a special guest, Chelsea Pezzola Iacovella. She's a former Sundial bride.
Yay! Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I don't think I've ever done this podcast that's not sports related, so I am so excited to be here today.
We are so excited to dive into all things destination weddings with you. Your wedding was insanely beautiful. Oh my goodness.
If you haven't seen her wedding, you can go to Sundial Creatives on my page and go ahead and see her wedding film right there.
You can see one of the most beautiful wedding videos I've ever seen by this amazing man over here. I got so many texts from people when the trailer came out being like, is this like a motion picture that's happening right now? I was like,
where do I see it in theaters?
Yes.
I love it. Chelsea, you got married in Italy.
Yes.
That is so cool. Can you paint us the picture? Paint us the weekend.
Yeah. So, when I started planning my wedding, and I will say me and my mom, it was a big, an amazing time for us together, but we really wanted to kind of create like a full experience. So our wedding was a 4-day celebration. It started on the Wednesday of that week. We did a small boat day with our bridal party and some of our closest friends. We sailed along the coast, which is, one of the main reasons, which, we can get into later, but one of the main reasons that we picked the Amalfi Coast was just the water. And so we did this big boat day with our bridal party, which was such a fun way to kind of connect and for them to get to know each other. We sailed to Capri, we had lunch there, we sailed back, and then we went back up to Ravello, which is the town where the wedding was, and we took over this entire little pizza place. It was kind of one of those chill days, but it kind of kicked off everything perfect, and especially with our bridal party. And then the next day was the first official wedding event. We had a La Dolce Vita themed welcome party at the world-renowned Conca de Sonia, which is a famous restaurant on the Amalfi Coast, and it's actually owned by one of the, I think, largest fishing families in Italy or maybe in the world. And
wow.
It's a really well-known restaurant. So all of our guests, we got them all on a boat, and they sailed the coastline, came to the restaurant, and then Nick and I kind of had our James Bond entrance on the Riva, which was so
iconic.
fun.
Gotta hear more about that.
It was amazing. And then, the food was just, love. In Italy, food is love, and that was, a big part of the week. But we had, amazing food. We did a live Scorpino show with champagne and limoncello, and then we had this amazing fireworks show, which was, something that I really was passionate about. And then the night was not over. We sailed to Positano, and we went to the famous nightclub Music on the Rocks, which is basically a nightclub in a cave in Positano.
That's insane.
And then, got our guests back on the boat at 3 a.m., back to Ravello, and then for some of the guests, it was a day off, and for our bridal party, it was our rehearsal dinner. We did a rehearsal dinner in the Herb Garden at Village Imbrone, which is this beautiful garden. It's from their Michelin star restaurant, which is basically farm to table from that exact garden, which was, really important because my husband's dad is actually from Italy, from a small town called Benevento, which is about an hour and a half outside the Amalfi Coast. And, him being a chef, having 7 restaurants in Tampa, that was something that was like really important to us for that night. So it was a long table, family style. The settings on the table were flowers, tomatoes, everything that was growing fresh there. There was ivy, candlelit, and it was, one of the most beautiful nights that, I got to experience. And then we had the wedding day, which was at Village Imbrone. It was kind of a combination of both those, from the luxury of the Dolce Vita, but to the definitely Italian style. This villa is just amazing, and it's a really large villa, and we got to use every aspect of the villa, which was really cool because we got to really show our personalities throughout the entire wedding day. So that's kind of the overview. And
Wow.
Man, that wedding week was just action packed.
Yes.
It was insane.
It sounds like it.
Yes.
Guys.
we were laughing. We were like, at first we were like, do we give like a day off? And then me and my mom looking back, we're like, we wish we would have had a day off, in between, because it was definitely going. But it was magical.
It was absolutely magical. Like, one of the things looking back at it that I, as a vendor, was being there, that I enjoyed and loved the most is seeing you and Nick just enjoy it with your family and your friends the most.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like, to me, it felt like looking at you and seeing you both interact. It didn't feel like, oh, I'm here to just do a production or everyone to have a good time. It's like, no, we're wanting to enjoy everyone, be with everybody.
Yeah.
And that was the most beautiful thing that I got to see from that whole week.
That's like the biggest compliment. And definitely, when people would tell us, it made Nick and I cry. And I think that speaks volumes. I know, we'll get into this later, but to the wedding planner, our wedding planner, and to their process, because you put so much process and so much planning into it. And then I think that's like one of the things that a lot of people don't do is actually enjoy it. And that was something that we like made a promise to ourselves going in, is like, listen, we put all this work in, and at this point it is what it is. If something goes wrong, if it rains, whatever it is, we're just going to enjoy it. And I, when are you ever going to have all your friends and family in Italy together celebrating, this magical moment? And so that's such a huge compliment, because it's something, we definitely strive for. So
I think that's so important when you do just embrace the moment, because like at a certain point you've planned all that you can plan. Your planner's planned all that she can plan.
Yes.
And as my Taylor Swift says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yes.
So I mean, just taking your wedding day for what it is, because again, it is just a day. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, and you just like really got to, look to your spouse and be like, okay, it's me and you getting married, and that's all that really matters.
And I think too, like Javier, you can play off this, but one of my favorite memories, there's so many obviously, but one of my favorite memories was on the day of our welcome party. Now I'm not very type A person, but for some reason with this wedding, I was like very type A bride, like prior, and when we were trying to pick like June or September, I was like going on like weather forecasts and like, okay, how many rain inches in this year did they get June or September? Like I was like going down the rabbit hole, but we picked June, we were happy with it. But of course, on the day of the welcome party, it's like raining, and our wedding planner's like, we don't even know if we can do the Riva. And that was kind of heartbreaking, because we had like planned this whole photo shoot. But at that point though, I was at the point where I was like, whatever it is, what it is, like we're gonna enjoy it. And my wedding planner was like, it's gonna stop. We're gonna be able to do it, but you need to go into the town of Amalfi and just like wait. So we go into this little bar. We have a glass of champagne, and the rain like perfectly stops. So Javier, being Javier, is like, all right, hurry up. Like there's no one on the steps. Like run up to the steps. Let's take some photos. Yeah. So we're like running up there. We get up there and we're like taking photos and videos. And mind you, these are like the most packed steps in Amalfi. And there is not a single person on these steps. And we're taking photos. And then all of a sudden, people start coming out of the shops and the restaurants, and they're clapping for us, because just magically there happened to be a car that said "just married" in front of the church, and people thought we had literally just got married. So they're clapping, they're like cheering. People are coming out of the restaurants with glasses of champagne, and I mean, to this day, I still get chills talking about it. But it was one of the coolest moments. It felt like it was out of a movie, and that would not have happened had it not been raining. So it's like the little moments that you can't plan for, like sometimes end up being the best moments. So
and that was such a magical part of the day, of the welcome party day.
Exactly.
It was insane. It gave me chills, because I'm like, everybody just came out of nowhere, just started clapping. It was raining, and it was insane. Yeah. Absolutely insane.
That sounds so
It was great.
cool.
And then, we're taking these pictures on the Riva boat, and there's these rainbows. I mean, it was just, I was like, you never wish for rain, but I was like, wow, the rain really kind of made this day.
Yeah. You're like, you came through for
And
me.
even on the Riva, we were
you.
ready. We had our rain jackets and everything. We're covering.
You're like geared up,
No, we were covering Chelsea, making sure she was all good.
Like, got all your
were
gear
amazing.
And, like, things.
So Andrea and I, we were working hard. Shout out to Connection Photography.
Yes, major shout out to them.
But no, that was such a magical day.
Yes.
But I want to kind of go back to the beginning.
Yes.
Why did you guys pick Italy? In the wedding planning?
So I'll try to make this short, but this is a little bit of a longer story. When we first started wedding planning, Nick has a really large family. He's Italian. I mean, he has so many aunts and uncles that, half aren't even really aunts and uncles, but we consider them aunts and uncles. So really large. And I have so many friends from so many different walks of life. We thought we were going to have, a 300-400 person wedding, and we didn't really think destination for that, because we're like, a lot of people can't travel. We started looking at a lot of venues locally. And then a girlfriend of mine invited me on a trip to Italy, and it was super last minute. And, Nick's like, you have to go. And so I went. And when I went, I totally fell in love with Italy. I was like, I could see myself getting married here. And, on the trip, I saw like a few wedding venues, but not really. And then we ended up doing a trip back to Italy. My mom was like, we can't plan a wedding without seeing it. So we, of course, of course. So we flew back there and we went to Lake Como and we went to Amalfi. And, Lake Como is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. I mean, we went to so many venues there and they were amazing. But when we got to Amalfi, it was just so Nick and I, we went out and we toured some venues and we went out on the water. And when we were in the water, we were just like, this is us. And there's just a lot of symbolism. Nick's last name is Iacovella, and that actually is derived from the Italian word aquabella, which actually means beautiful water in Italian. And it just, I think, spoke so much to who we are and everything that we wanted. And as I said, we wanted to do an experience. We wanted that 3 days, and everything that Amalfi kind of had to offer is what we wanted, from the people to the food to the water to everything was just so us. And, we really fell in love with it. And having Nick's dad, being so close to from there, and, my Italian heritage and things like that, it really fit us. And, a big part of it too was we're fun. We like to have fun. We want to party. And I think, there were certain limitations in other parts of Italy, Lake Como, like curfews and things like that. And, we didn't really have as much to deal with that in Amalfi. And that was just one of the reasons we picked it. And when we were there, we just kind of knew, I know a lot of people talk about like your wedding dress, like when but I think for us, it was so much more when we went to Amalfi and when we found our venue, we were like, this just feels so much like us, and the visions that we have, we can see it being here. So that was kind of why we picked it. And we knew it was going to be a lot, and we knew it was going to be a lot of planning, but it ended up being amazing. And with that smaller, more intimate wedding that we kind of envisioned at the venue, it actually was exactly what we wanted. And I think, going back, that's what we would do again, just because it allowed us to really focus on us. And I think, a lot of times you hear brides say like, oh, I wasn't even really with my husband or that. And, we were really thankful that we got to have a welcome party where we got to interact with a lot of guests. And then like really the rehearsal dinner and the wedding, it was just about us. Like, and we really felt that. And that's kind of why we picked Italy. So long answer, but
No,
I
love
love that.
Yeah.
I feel like I totally recommend doing wedding weekends. They are so much fun, especially from even like a creative standpoint. Like, and I know that for photography and videography, it's kind of similar, but it just plays into the story so well. When you do capture those memories, but also from, like that, where you're like, we get to visit with all of our guests on our welcome party. And then, then the wedding day, you're just like more focused on just like having a good time with everybody that you haven't seen in a while, instead of like doing introductions then and stuff like that. And then, you get those more intimate, candid moments too throughout the day of like, if you guys are having like a chill day with your bridal party, like the boat day, like that's so fun. And those memories that just like live on. So that is so cool.
When it came to, the logistics and finding out your venue, picking your venue in the Amalfi Coast, how was that process like, and how did you come up with that decision?
I mean, I'm one of those people that like I have to see everything before I pick. So I was very fortunate that we got to go and tour a bunch of different venues, and we did know that we were going to have a little bit of a larger party. So that was definitely a big factor in, picking a venue. But when we went to Village Imbrone, we kind of loved that. First off, it's a hotel. There's part of it is a hotel. And so, part of that is you do a buyout of the hotel. So all of our bridal party, all of our family was all staying in one place at once. And that to me was just so cool, because from the rehearsal dinner to the wedding night, like we were all together. And that was so important to me and just so cool. And, you kind of encompass like everything that's going on. And it just feels like your family and getting that time together. And then just like walking in the gardens of Village Imbrone. So first off, we had where our ceremony space was. It had never been used before for a bride. So I kind of saw it and I was like, this is just this beautiful long garden. And I kind of just envisioned like that long walkway. And I was like, I want to get married here. So definitely took some wiggling, and thank goodness for my wedding planners, because, they helped us work with the venue, but we made it happen. So we got to do this long aisleway that just, was just really romantic and encompassed all the romanticism of the venue. And then you went over to the happy hour, which was kind of overlooked the cliff, and then the iconic Infinity Terrace, which is, I will say, probably one of those things that really sold our venue, is the iconic Infinity Terrace. It's been in movies from, I think it was in Wonder Woman, and then it was in some other like spy movie, but I mean, it's this incredible venue Infinity that overlooks the entire Amalfi Coast. And I just loved it. I could see the pictures there and I could see, our guests going up there for happy hour. And then, you take a big turn around and you go back towards the villa and they have this like beautiful 1900s crypt and these arches. And I could just see us like having dinner under there and the candlelight. And then you go out to the big four dancer garden where it's on the cliff, but it'll be at dark and we had the chandeliers and, the stage. And it was just kind of everything that I could see that I wanted in my wedding, I could see happening there. And I think it was just really cool. It was unique. It was, we got to use every single square inch of that venue. I mean, we literally used it all and we took our guests through like a journey almost. You start here, you enter here and you went through all of it in a kind of cohesive way. And I think it was very us. It was very romantic. It had all the aspects of Italy, but also, we were able to bring in a little bit of some luxury flares where we saw fit. And yeah, I think it was just a combination of kind of all of that.
It was such a stunning venue.
Oh, thank
stunning.
you.
Honestly, because we rehearsal dinner, we used one side of it.
Yep.
And then we came to actual wedding day, we used the other side.
Yep.
And then the reception.
Yes.
That was insane.
Yes.
I love that area. I want to talk more about that later on too. But I want to dive into, I think, the part where like the vendors, us vendors are going to be like, all right, what's like your thought process now when it came to picking out your vendors once you picked out your venue?
Yeah.
What was that order list or priority list kind of look like?
Yeah. So, well, first off, Javier was my first vendor booked.
That's iconic.
Yes. We had worked together prior. I met Javier at a friend's wedding and then I saw his work. I loved his work. And I came to Javier. We wanted to do a big engagement party because we were thinking about destination at the time. And we were like, we don't know if everyone can come, but we're going to do this big kind of blowout engagement party because I was a Sarasota debutante. We love a theme party. We're going to do it. So I called Javier and I was like, Javier, I have this like crazy idea. Like I want to make an invitation that feels as personal as like a handwritten invitation, but like a video electronic. I was like, I want to do like a Great Gatsby theme video, like invitation. And he was like, didn't question me. He was like, okay, let's do it. And he made my vision come to life. And it was so amazing working with him from not only like having this idea to having him kind of flawlessly put together this idea and how comfortable Nick and I, especially Nick, in front of a camera and just how much fun we had. Like it didn't feel like it was like a video shoot. It felt like we were just like having drinks with Javier and, it was like so amazing. And then to see it come to work. So I was like, I knew that I wanted to do that. And I think, if you get to work, I mean, it's hard. Most people don't get to work with their vendors prior. So that's, a little tough. But for me, in order, obviously you were first because I knew we'd work together and I knew that there was no one else that after having worked with you, that I was going to pick to work for my wedding. Like there was just no other way. So that's a little side note. But, and then after that, obviously our wedding planner was first. My biggest advice to destination brides, which this can go either way. Some people do it without them. And I'm like, all praise to you because I could have never, especially being in a different country, speaking a different language. Our wedding planner, I interviewed so many wedding planners. And that I think is a big thing about when you pick your vendors, you have to interview them. And there's so many good pieces of advice out there. Like I know brides.com or even the Knot, it's like you can type in like what to ask a photographer before booking or like what to ask, like good questions to ask your wedding planners. I mean, I had like a list of like 20 questions that I asked every single wedding planner. And when I first booked our wedding planner, the thing I loved most about her was she just was so she knew every question that I asked, like in terms of like budgeting things, and she knew it right away, which is huge because you could tell she knew the area. She'd worked with the vendor. She knew all that. And she just made us feel so comfortable. We laughed because, me and my mom, if you've met my mother, she does not take no for an answer. And so I'm sure it was a lot to work with us, but one of the things I love most about Jackie and her team is we would get on the phone with Jackie. We would come to her with this like crazy idea or this last minute change. And she never said no. All she would say was, ladies, leave it with me. And she would either come back with make it happen or a solution that was like just as acceptable. And so like that for us made the process so easy. And then from there, after hiring her, she kind of gave us a list of certain vendors that, she's worked with or that she liked. And then, just going through that list, again, the interview process, interviewing every single one. I think social media is a huge tool in today's day and age of seeing like, a vendor might have been great for another bride, but if your style and something is so different, you're not going to like that vendor. I think especially too with like photography or certain, lighting things and things like that.
Absolutely.
Even like enough when I was booking photography, I reached out to Javier and I was like, my style. Like, do you think I'll like this, like I honestly value your opinion. I wanted to have for Javier for everything. I was like, can you have 10 hands to do everything?
Please help me.
But we loved our photographers, Shout Out Connection Photography. They were amazing. And they actually worked a lot with Javier in that, congruency. And then a destination, the one thing that I think is really different, especially like in Italy, is we did fly out a few of our vendors, and it's because like certain things in Italy or like certain things in certain places actually cost more. So like logistically it was more beneficial that way. And I liked and felt more comfortable with them. So like, hair and makeup, like Kiss It Makeup by Steph. She's local Tampa. She is amazing. We'd work together for my engagement party. I didn't even do a makeup trial because I already knew like her style is amazing, but I wasn't going to be able to fly or to work, like do a makeup trial over there. And I felt so comfortable with her. I trusted her style for the 3 days. I knew that. So I was like, I would rather have her there with me and just not have to stress about that and know that I'm going to feel comfortable in my look. Like that was, and the same thing with Sam, who did my hair. So there's things like that it just, there's like certain logistics that you got to really weigh in, like, okay, what are the costs over there and how much and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, that's definitely huge. I love how you spoke about interviewing your vendors.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I think that's huge and sometimes overlooked.
Yeah.
Where it's like in that planning process, like, hey, get to know who your creative vendors are. And especially your wedding planner too, because you want to make sure, there's a good cohesive collaboration. You guys can work together, understand each other's visions.
Yes.
And then, with the creatives, like your photo and video team, those are the only two things you're pretty much going to have for the most part. In terms of memories, that you want to make sure that they know how to capture your style.
Right.
And that's a huge thing that I'm always trying to preach in, like, hey, talk to your vendors. If you inquire with them, sure, ask for their brochures, but like take the time to talk to them.
Yes.
If they fit within budget, doesn't mean that their style may work with you.
Right.
It's huge to know what your offerings are, what you're getting and you're receiving. And just making sure you're on the same page. So I love that you took that time to interview all your vendors. That's huge.
Yeah, it's so important. And, from a creative standpoint too, we always say that we're always like, oh, we want to hop on the call. Like we want to get to know you and stuff like that. But like, we also love when you get to know us, you know what I mean? Because it's so important to have that connection. Because if one person is, like reaching out, it's like, hey, I want to get to know you. I want to get to know your love story and all this stuff. It's, we want you to return it to us too, so that we
even for myself, I call it now an emotional transaction.
Oh yeah.
It's like, sure, you're hiring me for your video service of your wedding day, but I'm actually looking to get to know who you are, your story is, because that's where I draw the elements for my creativity and the storyline to create your film and the inspiration. As you and I were artists and we're not only just documenting, but we're also creating. And so in that sense, if I don't have that inspiration, like I may not be a good fit for you.
Right.
And I preach about, hey, I'm not cookie cutter. I'm here to create something that's custom, that's personalized and tailored to who you guys are. So that's huge.
Yeah. And I laughed because the day after our wedding or, 2 days later, we did a little mini moon and we're in Sicily and Nick looks over and I'm crying and he's like, what are you crying about? I was like, well, I'm just so sad because I feel like I'm like going through a breakup with my wedding planners because I'm just like not going to talk to them every day, Like he was like, oh my gosh, they become like family. And even, we got so lucky with our wedding planners. Like I could talk, all of my vendors, I feel so blessed, but I could talk all day about my wedding planners because they became like family, not only to us, but also to us, like some of our guests. Like they were so amazing with helping with some of the logistics of transportation and things like that. And, some of our elder, people that attended, they wouldn't have been able to plan that or do all that. And as a bride, you want to help, but at some point, you're doing so many other different things that it's hard to do that. And our wedding planners really took that over and helped. And they were a godsend because we wouldn't have had the wedding that we had without them. So
absolutely, they were amazing throughout the whole day, communicating everything.
Yes,
yeah. Because that's the thing too, is your wedding planners, you have to put trust in them because they're also your guests are putting trust into them, especially with a destination wedding. They help so much with like you said, transportation, housing, where's everybody going to stay? Is everybody going to be close together? So that you guys can see each other in the lobby or whatever it may be. And so you want to have trust in them because they're not just looking after you, they're looking after your guests, your friends, your family, and all that fun stuff too. So there's a level of trust there that's needed. So what were some challenges that you faced planning a wedding overseas?
Yeah. Oh, so it's funny because I thought the number one challenge was definitely going to be the language barrier. And to be honest, again, shout out to my wedding planners. We really didn't face any of that because the vendors that were over there, they kind of did all that communication. And obviously, again, they helped with the transportation, they helped with the logistics. So that really wasn't, an issue at all. I think, some of the challenges were obviously like the currency, like you get quotes in their currency and that changes a lot. So that could, alter like certain budget things, or if you're trying to, do different budgets, that could be something that gets a little confusing calculating. And then the other biggest challenges are like funny things like, you can't just like bring a steamer over there, or you can, but you like want to make sure that it's one that's not going to spit water because, it's not the right outlet. So it's like, we're trying to order on like Amazon, Italy, like praying that it gets to the right place at the right time.
It's
that
like you have
type
two checked bags too.
Exactly. And it's like, you can't really like, DIY anything or anything that you want to bring. Like, I mean, it's crazy. Or even like the littlest things of like bringing your dresses over, like getting it through customs, like, having an extra carry-on, like one of the little, like, we flew into Milan and then you have to take, I think it's EasyJet or something. We had to buy a seat for my wedding dress, like little things like that,
that's insane.
Yes. And like, thankfully, like through social media, I had found that out, or else like they've not let brides on the flight, like things like that. That's like,
that's insane.
Little,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's like little things like that you don't really think of that can, be, but I think like the biggest thing is, just the little things that you would bring from home, or even like your bridal kit, like having chalk or like little stupid things like that you don't really think about, that you can't just find or go to the convenience store down the street. And granted, they have them, and the wedding planning team there they had boxes of things if you need anything, but you just don't really have that access to that stuff. So
yeah, for
that's
sure.
Awesome.
Yeah,
so at that
crazy.
point, then, what are some tips that you have for potential couples that are looking to plan a destination wedding?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of that, it's just do your research. I think, social media in today's day and age, like, social or Instagram and even like TikTok. Like TikTok was like the like warning, like don't do this. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know this. I have like I kept a list of things that like, you might need. I think just like doing your research and being as prepared as you can be, because that's really all you can do. And then just, like you said, kind of taking those challenges with a grain of salt. And at the end of the day, like nobody's going to see the little spot on your dress that's, little or something like that. I mean, fortunately, I did not have any of those little challenges,
like, I didn't have that.
Yeah, I didn't have that. But, just those little things that you hear, kind of those horror stories about. And again, your wedding planning team, because they, I think one of our groomsmen, a button popped off his shirt, and like when they were taking photos, and our wedding planner just ran over with a sewing kit and just sewed it back on. So it's like, I keep saying that like our wedding would not have been possible without our wedding planners, and I mean that from the bottom of the heart, because they just went above and beyond, and they did help so much. So I think, and then just remembering that the day is about getting married and like your loved one, and when those challenges happen, you just deal with it. So
yeah, for sure.
Well, we asked a lot about you only. What was Nick's role? Your husband. What was his role in the whole wedding planning?
The other half that kind of makes this wedding, big deal.
No biggie.
He laughs because he will tell you he was there every step of the way, but he was like, the one thing I learned is just say yes. Like,
King, yes.
He definitely, there were like times where I was like, hey, I really want your opinion on this. Like, what do you think? And he genuinely would give me like his opinion and do that. But I think he was just so supportive, like in any single moment, to just be like, I was like, hey, I like this idea. Like, what do you think? And he'd be like, listen, I love it. I think this is exactly what you see. I'm totally on board with it. Like, he was just so supportive, but he was also very present in the, in the conversations, and, any call that we went on, like, he was like, do you want me on it? Do you need my help? Like, where, like, he was very active in that, which was awesome. Like I said, I'm not type A person in general, but like with the wedding, I was very type A, and I really took charge, but he was always there to support me and be there for me. And, he had his input. His biggest input was definitely on his tuxes. He really had a vision with that and kind of went with it, which was awesome. Shout out to Tweeds. They are local Tampa.
Oh, Tweeds is the best.
Yes, they did all of his tuxes. And I'll tell this little funny story. So for the welcome party, I had for some reason with the welcome party, that was my biggest vision of like Dulce Vita. I got my dress. I was like, this is what I want. And so it got this beautiful, sand tux, whatever. And he had it, and he was going to wear it, and he gets it. And I'm like looking at it, I'm like, this is not going to match with my dress. Like, I was like, this is not going to work. And I was like,
might be an issue.
This is, and he was like, what do you mean? He's like, this is perfect for and I was like, no, I was like, you can't wear it. I was like, this won't work. And he was like, in the moment, kind of like, what? And he was just like, okay, like, what would you like me to wear? And he just, not what would you like me to wear? I shouldn't say it like that, but he was like, okay, well, let's, what are some other options, and he's showing me all the stuff. And he wore another custom jacket that Tweeds they had made, and it was like beautiful and was like perfect. And it was amazing. But it was just funny because like in the moment he was so excited for this outfit, and I was like, that's not gonna match.
It's not gonna highlight me.
And he didn't understand until he saw my dress, and he was like, okay, I totally get it. We would have totally, I'm wearing a sparkle dress and he was, it just wouldn't have worked. But so that was him, but he was just so supportive but he did give his input and was there to just, kind of give his input. So
That's awesome. I mean, he had the tuxes on lockdown.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
He
he was
looked
looking
good, but
drippy.
and it was cool. Like, he had the little touches, which I loved, like his name on his sleeve and his initials and things like that. That was like the little touches.
That's why I love Tweeds, is because it's so custom and you can do whatever.
I know, I loved it, and it was cool. Tweeds is a really cool experience. You go in, like you have like a cocktail, you try on your things. Their offices are so cool. So yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah,
shout
out to Donald. Sponsor us.
Yeah, come on, Donald, get on.
Let's go.
Yes. All my vendors, I'm like, I literally was like, I'm like, Javier, if you Steph, my makeup artist, she's amazing. I'm like, I want all my vendors to just connect and be, because I recommend and support like all of them to stay. I'm like, can I get married again so we can just do it again?
We just like go part 2.
Yeah,
I love it.
5-year like
a vow renewal. Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Or a style shoot. You never know. We reach out.
Listen.
Like, hey.
We're down for a styled shoot. I know. Yeah. I'm so down.
You're like, yeah. Can I ask you guys how you guys met?
Oh yeah. So this is actually a hilarious story, but Nick actually met my parents first. So I always joke, I'm like, I think he married me for my parents, but we kidding aside. But my best friend from high school was Nick's college roommate. So he graduated, not Nick, the roommate graduated in December. So he had a big graduation party, and my parents were like a second family to him because we grew up going to IMG, and so they went to the graduation party, and Nick was also there, and so they just like instantly clicked. And I was away at school at the time at Michigan, and him and my stepdad really clicked. And my stepdad said to Nick, like, hey, do you play golf? And he's like, yeah, I do. And he's like, well, Chelsea's away at school, I don't have anyone to golf with, if you want to come down and play golf on the weekends. So Nick and his roommate, who's also Nick, would come down on the weekends.
So
yeah, Nick and Nick, they would come down on the weekends, hang out with my parents, go golfing, and they became really close. And then I came home from school, and I would be like, who's this Nick guy you guys keep talking about? They're like, we forget you know him. And we met, we became really good friends. And so we were friends. I keep mixing up how long, but I think it's almost like 10 or 11 years we've been friends. And then when COVID hit, we both moved back, and we just started hanging out. And I think we always kind of had a thing for each other, but when we both kind of knew where we were going to be, and it just, the right time, it really gave God's plan, because, you couldn't have pictured that, and obviously couldn't have predicted COVID, but it was a huge positive for us to bring us back together. And yeah, that's how.
That's so cool.
So cool.
Yes.
He was already in with the parents before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was like, I wiggled my way in.
Yeah.
That's so iconic.
And it's cool too, because he's on my parents, but his family, our families are so conjoined now. We spend holidays all together, and we're so fortunate, because I know, sometimes you do separate and things like that. And we're so blessed that his family is so welcoming to my family, and my family is obviously so welcoming to his. So it's a really, really cool dynamic that we're just like so blessed to have.
Did you have a particular theme for each single day of the wedding weekend, or how was your thought process and design of that?
So I think for the welcome party, I definitely was like, hands down, I want like La Dolce Vita themed welcome party. We went back and forth, like, do we want to do something during the day? Do we want to do something at night? And, that was something that really kind of went back and forth. But when we had the venue, we kind of started seeing the vision. I was like, I want to do it at night. I want this La Dolce Vita theme. And that's really where that kind of went. And with that, I think theme, that was the most specific one we had. With everything else, it kind of just fell into place based on the personality of us that night, or what we were trying to portray, so like the rehearsal dinner, like that was really encompassed by Nick's dad. I mean, him being from Italy, like, being a chef, the farm to table, like that was
so cool.
Yeah, it was so cool. And I mean, when you did the video and hearing him speak that night, it was just, everything about that was so him. He the day before was like walking in the garden with his hands behind his back, and we're like, Pasquale, you can't pick that, like don't pick it, because like, he would just pick it and eat it. Like that's just so him. And like that was so cool to see his personality. And then my mom, she was the biggest aspect. And we came to our wedding planner like 2 weeks before, and she's like, we have to change where the happy hour is. And I was like, or the cocktail hour. And I was like, wait, what? She was like, it just doesn't flow right. Like you can't go from the wedding to back to here to there. She's like, what if we moved it here? And our wedding planners was like, I don't know. She was like, let me see what I can do.
I love that.
Leave it with me. Leave it with me. And we made it happen. And the cohesiveness of that, like that was so my mom. And I think my mom's planned a lot of events, and she's so good at entertaining that she was a really big part in kind of making it all flow. And then obviously our wedding planners and kind of coordinating that logistics. But the wedding day, I don't really know if I had too much of a theme. I think I had like certain aspects there that I wanted to see. And, in the crypt, I thought it was really cool. Like the juxtaposition of having like those arches and this like beautiful architecture, and then, you know, bringing in like some luxury with like the chandelier or like the really high flowers and the candlelight, and like, you know, and then having like the music. Like the music for me, I think, which is something I haven't talked about yet, which I'm shocked about, was my number one non-negotiable. And my biggest, I think, splurge was like, I was like, for the wedding day, I was like, I want a live band. And
live bands are the best.
Oh my
so
gosh,
much fun.
yes.
Totally changed the dynamic of everything.
They were amazing. And the coolest part, and you know, this is something maybe we talk about later, but like one of the biggest challenges that we faced is, so obviously in Italy, food is love. Their dinner's there. The biggest difference that we saw was like weddings in Italy, the dinner is very long. So it's like, I think what they had originally planned was like over like 2.5 hours. And for us, we were like, we have like a certain amount of time. We want to get to the dance, you know, we want to do that. We obviously want to enjoy it. But so what we did, because they were very strict on their timing of when they played it, we actually had our band come in and sing in the crypt. So they sang around the tables, and it added like a level of entertainment. So it was just like, you know, you weren't just like, you know, say, obviously you're saying they're talking, but we had 140 people, which is, you know, the large wedding for them and in that space. And so it created such a cool aspect of it that it felt like dinner flew by, you know, type of thing, where in Italy, they like to have those longer drawn out things. So I think it was just kind of fell into place, but definitely the welcome party had the Dolce Vita theme, you know, vibe. So
was your dinner 2 hours?
No. So it was no.
It wasn't actually 2 hours?
No, we ended up cutting we like cut combined a course so that it like felt it was shorter.
How many courses was it?
So I think it was still 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was 4, but they originally had, I want to say like 5 or 6 or something. I mean, it's very drawn out. So, you know,
it's so fun though.
Yeah, it's like, you know, salad, pasta, you know, all that. And we were like, okay, let's, you know, we'll do the salad at but like the hors d'oeuvres at the happy hour that kind of do some of this, and we'll do the pasta and do that. So I think it was an hour and a half, but it didn't feel like an hour and a half. Like we were kind of with the band and how they sung. The band ended up, they were going to sing 3 times. They ended up cutting because of some of the logistics and running late. So it really went by so quick. So.
Yeah, and that's so fun that you had aspects of everyone you love in it too, you know what I mean? Like you said your mom and like his dad too being from there, and like that whole, the rehearsal dinner was all like for him and everything. Like that is just so cool that like you can look back and they remind you of certain people, like certain aspects remind you of certain people. And on wedding days, I feel like you get very caught up in like, oh, it's just about us. But it's like, no, like your friends and family are there too, and they mean so much to you. And like, you know, like everybody knows that. I mean, you know what I mean? So.
Well, and it's funny because a lot of people talk about how like stressful the wedding planning process is. And yes, like it is stressful. You have those moments. But at the end of the day, like for me, it was like one of my favorite times because me and my mom got to spend so much quality time together and had so much fun. And, you know, there was hour phone calls with our wedding planner, but it was like we would sit there and have our coffee and be like calling them. And it was just time that we got to spend together that I'm like so thankful for. And we had a lot of fun doing it.
Oh,
so
that is so sweet.
Yeah.
That's so important.
That's awesome. Honestly, each one of those days were truly magical. Like even from the vendor perspective. See, now I get to give you insight of like
He's
the
like,
opposite
end.
Because like for my end, like working alongside the photography team, Connection Photography, Joseph and Andrea, it was amazing. Like for us, and then the other vendors included with Steph. Like it just felt like a family in that sense, because you know we're there. You know, obviously we arrived a couple days prior. And it just felt like amazing. Like honestly, we never wanted it to end. But like obviously, we were in our own villa for the vendors, and that was really cool too. And just being able to spend time with the photo team, because then allowed us to plan everything out, have confidence in one another, and look out for our interests for you guys at the end of it. And at the end, we just felt like family, which was really, really cool. And even some of the groomsmen and the guests there. So that was like super awesome. And then for my experience, just getting to see, again, you guys celebrate, having fun, your family, your mom, your dad, and then, you know, Nick's parents too as well. That was beautiful. And then even honestly, the highlight was the party, the reception.
Yeah.
At the end.
The band, like they just, oh
the
my
band
gosh.
killed it. Like I actually FaceTime my parents because I'm like, you gotta see this. This is insane. I had to. I'm sorry.
Love that. Oh my, dude, never say sorry. I love that more than anything.
Like I just had to. I'm like, I have to FaceTime my parents. This is like insane. And I called my wife and they showed her family. They're like, what? This is insane. And it's like 11 over there and it's like 11 p.m. over here.
I I love that so much.
Because it really felt like a real
funny.
concert.
Yeah.
You guys were having a blast. We were having a blast capturing you guys. And it was just
That is
insane.
so cool.
But I just had a face.
Yeah, I love it. I think the reception too, for me, honestly, just because there's so much planning. We were enjoying every single minute, but the reception at that point, I was like, okay, there is like we have one more after party. There's not like I can finally, and I think the music, like it just hit you. And going back to one of the things you said about like the challenges. So I don't know if this is like a universal thing. I don't know because obviously I've only played a wedding there. But for there, when you're looking at bands, they like. They have certain ones you can look at on social media, and then they have like a website where you can like go on and like look at the bands, and then they have their pages. But then you don't know if you're going to get those band members. So like they might have one band that might play like three different two different weddings
like
or
a
whatever.
company, and then
so you don't know. And
yeah.
I am so particular about music. Like that for me, like the music. I mean, I think I had every song from our entrance to the welcome party for our, my wedding song. I was so particular about that because I think music can really set a mood. Like it's just something that's so important to me. And so like, I just was like, I'd find a band I liked. And then I was like, okay, but I want these singers like that are in these videos. And they're like, we can't guarantee that. And then I'd see another video of someone that I like didn't really like on that band. So it was just really hard for me. But when my wedding planner sent us our band, I was like, they were just every singer in that band was amazing, and they were just they were
truly incredible.
Yeah,
like even Alessandro and I, we connected
Yes.
even after the wedding.
Yes.
We became friends, so we messaged each other
Yes.
back and forth. And I'm like, just insane. The level of quality and the talent that they have.
Yes.
Another level. And like the only thing that I wish we could have done, but we couldn't, was fly the drone at night to
know.
really show off the
know.
space.
Yes.
Because it was just huge.
Yes.
And even like the video I captured doesn't justify the full experience. You just had to be there.
Yeah.
It's one of those moments.
Listen, you did a pretty amazing job, and I think
She's like,
too,
hold the phone. Yeah.
but and
I
also
love it.
like just what Javier, I think you did so amazing. Was you showed everything obviously, but the emotion that you captured. Like this morning before I came, I obviously watched all the trailers and I was like tearing up. But you can see like just the emotion and the love and like what you talk about. Like you really felt the love. I feel like in the video, like if it wasn't me in the video, you could still feel that love. Like it's just crazy how much emotion you captured and how you put it all together. I mean, it was just amazing, and you gave us those memories that we can look back on, so it's very, very special how you captured that. So
and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned so much from that wedding too as well. Even for myself, like looking back, I found things like, oh, what can I do better for that next time?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, I'm going to invest into certain gear equipment like time code and stuff, because we had so many speeches, so many things that went on, and I'm like, whoa. And this really has, since that experience really helped me just elevate my work even more. Where it's like, I think it was, I remember I was trying to mic up your dress and I couldn't mic up your dress. And I was just so upset because for me, it was my first time doing it. I'm like, man, I wish I just had a little bit more time.
Yeah.
And we still got the audio, we still got everything. But I'm like, I would have been able to add so much more element. And it was one of those things that I wasn't even doing before then.
Yeah.
It was something I wanted to experiment with, which is something I now always do every single wedding. I mic up the bride's dress. And I've done it now like 40 times after the wedding, and I learned.
You're like, I got it down.
It's like, every opportunity I've been afforded, like I've always learned and see where I can improve and get better on.
Yeah.
And your wedding gave me a lot of experience to like, okay, I can do this better. I can do that better. And I still love the video, the outcome, everything we did.
Amazing.
And you know what's my favorite is watching your full ceremony.
Yes.
Like that video was pretty much insane.
Which, like, speaking of microphones, like, I'm just going to say this as a tip to a bride because I will never forget, like, it's so funny you brought up the microphone. We had a conversation and you said, like, on your ceremony, like, what are you going to do with the mics? And I just in the moment, it's one of those things where you, like, don't really think about oh, you're officiant. And obviously we had music, so we had the mic with them. And like, I didn't really think about it. And this is the only thing that really went wrong in like our whole, but like then obviously didn't really go wrong. It was a cute moment for Nick and I, but we, our officiant, he right before the ceremony, he's done a ton of weddings. He's Nick's uncle, and so it's really special. And chief judge of Tampa, so he knows, and he's amazing. And our wedding planner's like, okay, like, do you want a microphone? He's like, oh no, I don't want one. So we're like, okay, like they were like, great, that's amazing for pictures. It looks better. But I remember Javier asking me like, are you gonna have a microphone like for your vow, like we just had the conversation and I didn't like really understand. And then when we got up there, he was great. Everyone could hear him. He's a very loud voice. But I, that morning woke up and I think I was just nervous, whatever. I lost my voice almost. And Nick is very soft-spoken when he's emotional. So our vows, nobody heard our vows. So that was like one thing that was like a little bit heartbreaking because I wasn't going to write our vows. And I was like, because I was like, I'm not a great public speaker. Like I'm a little nervous. And so I didn't write Nick was like, it's really important to me. And I was like, I think it's really important too. So we wrote them. I wrote my vows a year in advance. I would like practice in my car with the song. Like, I was like, and finally I was like, I'm really excited. And so that was like the only little like hiccup that's still like, when people are like, did anything go wrong? I'm like, only that little thing. But that's like the only, but my advice to brides is make sure if you are having a microphone and you're officiant, like that is like those little things that do matter that, you kind of like important. Don't,
And it was huge too, because at that point, obviously now my systems are completely different.
Yeah.
But at that time, I had at least from the vendor for video, was I captured the audios from the microphone.
Yeah.
So that's one source of audio. Then I do have Nick mic'd up.
Right.
But when he's emotional, it's kind of hard to, you
Yeah.
can't use that part of the footage.
Right.
And luckily, we do mic up our officiants as well.
Yeah.
And his mic was able to capture your audio.
Oh, good. Good.
That's how we were able to capture your audio.
And my voice, when my wedding planners, they're like running to like I don't even know how you say the pharmacy in Italian, but they like ran down there and they're like getting me tea. And my one wedding planner, Jo, she was amazing. Yeah. She gave me some, she's like, just drink it. It's horrible, but drink it. And I chugged it right before and like, thank goodness, because it gave me like a little voice. And then then after the ceremony, my voice came back. I was like, okay, really?
Like, we're good, right?
Really? But my voice was very, very low. So I think like the first 2 rows were the only one that heard it. Yeah. But everyone was like, oh, we thought that was just like you and Nick doing your private vows. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. You're like, it was.
Yeah, sure, it was.
We'll change the narrative. Yeah.
It was awesome though. Yeah. Like looking back at your full ceremony video and then seeing the front row and everybody got emotional, the vow reading. It probably the best vows I've ever heard, honestly. It was just insane. Everybody. And then even the handkerchief with Boomer on it too as well, Nick.
I think, that obviously had so much meaning, back. That was something one of the only cons we had about like destination wedding was like, oh, our dog can't come. And if you know us, our dog is like our child. And so I got Nick a handkerchief that had Boomer on it. And I forget exactly what it said, but it was like, Dad, for your happy tears, like love you or something. And when it was amazing because like, I didn't realize that it would show up. Like Nick had it on him, but when he was crying down the aisle, he brought it out. And so you can like perfectly see Boomer in like so many of our photos and like the video. And like, it just was like so special because I'm a dog lover, but
no, I love it. Me too.
I'm like that crazy dog mom right now.
One of the highlights from also as a vendor in video that I really love when like creating everything was seeing Nick's brother get so emotional. Yeah. Like, as you're walking down, like he's right there with his brother and he's just tearing up too as well.
Yeah.
Yes. that was cool and special. And then also his speech.
Yep.
That was huge because I look up to my big brother in that same way. And I'm like, wow, like that was impactful.
It was, his speech was, all the speeches were so amazing. And like, when I watch the video, those are the moments I'm like, can't stop crying because it's so amazing. But if you were, going to be the best man and you need some inspiration, go watch his speech. Because it was like, there was not a dry eye like in the place. It was like, it was truly, he worked on it very hard too. So it was like, it was just, I know, it was really, really sweet. So.
That's so sweet. Yeah. And I kind of want to touch on that too. Like, Chelsea, you said where you're like, Javi captured the most emotion in the video, a replication of like your love that surrounds you and Nick and your family. And, and exactly just like that, like embracing the moment, like all of those emotions came so naturally. Like Javi didn't bring out those emotions. He captured them in a beautiful way, like he is trained to do, you know what I mean? But like those emotions are because of the love that surrounds you and your family and your friends. So that's just
thank you guys.
Beautiful.
Making me blush again. I'm
like I'm crying over here. But yeah, just like
thank you guys.
Really embracing, the family, the friends, the love, the wedding day is just so important for us as creatives, at least.
And trust me, anyone that watches the video, like I've had inquiries, they're like, I saw that video and it was just absolutely insane. It felt like I was there. Like I felt like I know the couple and crying. And I even added, the reactions when you and Nick were watching it.
Yes.
So that way they
sobbing.
It's like this can be you guys.
Yes, it can be.
This can be you. You just have to embrace your day. I love it. Who were your top 3 vendors that you were like, these are like my top 3, like I'm going to invest in these people? And what were your 3 like requirements for them, or like 3 top questions that you had for each one?
So I think for me, obviously first was wedding planner, just because we could not have planned this wedding without our wedding planning team. Also, I don't even know if I've said their names at the Amalfi experience. They were like incredible. They were a team of 4 or 5 women. They each kind of had their own thing. They had to be number one for me because I could not have made the vision that I wanted happen. So they were really number one for me. Second was definitely photo video, because I'm going to combine that one because the next one, but that for me, like I just knew after this wedding, I'm definitely a content girl, you know, having the job that I have. I knew that was going to be really important to me. And I knew we were going to put all of this work into this wedding, and I wanted something that would last after, you know, the photos, the video, and really like, I mean, it's hard to say a video or photo, but for me, like if someone's like, should I hire a videographer? I'm like, absolutely. Like I just cannot imagine not having like the memories that I have in the videos and things that I didn't see. Like, you know, like the ceremony, like I didn't get to see the bridesmaids or my flower girl walk down, and having that video is something like I am so thankful for. Or like the little moment of Nick and I after the wedding walking out, like us talking to each other. Like those are things that like I would never remember nowadays, and having that memory, that was like it. So that was a non-negotiable for me. And then 3 is really hard because I say it was the music. That was kind of like my biggest splurge, and something that I was so particular about at every point in my wedding. And that was like, I wanted the fun. I wanted the band. I wanted one that was just going to be for every age group, that was going to work with us, that was it. So that was really important to me. But also hair and makeup was also like a very close, you know, third.
Like it could be
because I really want to feel confident. And that was the best thing about Steph and Sam, because I'd worked with both of them prior, which was great. But they just made me feel so confident. And I wanted 3 different looks, which is kind of hard because obviously makeup, it's a little bit easier, but like hair, you know, I wear my hair the same every single day. So like I had to make sure I was comfortable and, you know, doing an updo, a half down. And they were just so amazing with like, here's my vision. This is what I'm thinking. They would do it and be like, anything you want to change? And I was like, nope, this is perfect. Or yes, let's do this. And they were just incredible. So that's kind of the order. Number 3 is hard to pick between those 2.
Yeah, for sure. When picking your photographers.
Yes. They were a couple.
Yep. Oh, so cute. I love that.
Yes.
What were your biggest questions that you had for them?
Yeah.
Like what made them feel like the right choice?
So I think I, again, did a lot of research prior. So even before our call, like I said, I reached out to Javier. I said, this is like who I'm kind of thinking. There was a lot in Italy, but you know, it just wasn't me. Like I just was like, they were great options. But when I found our venue, I had seen Connection Photography. They had been in Italy before. They had done a wedding there, and I was obsessed with their photos. Like every photo I kind of compared to them. And I said to Javier, like, you know, their coloring is, you know, a little bit different than some. Do you think I'll like this? Like, what do you think? And he was like, yes, I could definitely see that. And they were just amazing. Like on the phone, they were so open. They answered every single question. They were very upfront about like budget and pricing. And, you know, I think that's something that as a bride, you kind of like, are there hidden fees? Are there things like that? You've heard like horror stories, very open, very upfront. You know, for me, like timing, I think, you know, like I kind of wanted like sneak peeks, or, you know, like, hey, like I want 3 photos, you know, if possible, a few days after the wedding, like not all of them. Like obviously I know there's a million, but like that I can post, or, you know, things like that. And it was so cool that you guys both did like extra social media and things like that. And just kind of like, I think like my vendors, I put in the effort, but they also put in the effort. We knew each other. And I think that was really important in capturing it and like, you know, having those moments. And even Javier, like you sent out the questionnaire of like, what's really important moments, you know, like, oh, I want like, you know, these certain things are really important. Like I want, like the main thing I want is when I'm coming down the aisle, I want Nick's reaction. Like that is so important for me to see. That's my favorite part of a wedding. And like, I want that captured on both video and photography so that I have that forever. And I think just having those conversations, I don't know if there was like 3 specific things that I asked, but I think I just asked so many questions so that I got to know them 100%. Like I knew who they were, like, and know that like, hey, like, you know, this is not going to be easy logistically. Like our wedding logistics were probably the hardest part, but like, we're going to, you know,
but it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, but you got to be ready. And they were so ready. Like they hit the ground running, you know, they were doing social media the day before. Like it was just awesome. And I knew that was just going to be, what, but we really getting to know their personalities. And I think for me, the biggest thing is with my vendors was like personality wise, we all clicked to where after, I mean, Steph is now she's one of my dearest friends now. And we hang out all the time. Javier, your family, like obviously, Sam, she's in Arizona, but we still stay in touch. And if I ever have a big event, she'll be doing my hair. So, it's like my vendors became family. And I think it's because personality wise, moral wise, like everything, we really clicked. So that's important to me.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. And Javi, I want to jump to you for a question. How important was it for you to be able to connect with the other like vendors there? Because I mean, you're all in. You said you were in a villa.
Yes.
All together.
Yeah.
So like you're in this space with a bunch of people that like, you know what I mean? A bunch of different vendors.
It was huge, being overseas, being the first time going to Italy. That was, it was huge for me to connect with photo, especially because that's the team I'm going to be working side by side with and getting to know them and making sure we just have a really good working relationship, which was immediately like, boom, we're like family. I always bring headsets that way we can talk and communicate.
Oh, they're the best.
And they work so well. Like, sure, they don't look good, but
you looked professional out there.
Yeah,
I
know, it's so iconic. Yeah, no.
But just giving one to Joseph or Andrea, that allowed us to communicate, get to know one another, and have those conversations. And then by the end of, honestly, by the welcome party, we're already like friends pretty much. And we kind of had a good understanding of how to work alongside one another. That was really huge for me. And then Steph actually ended up hiring me as her wedding videographer.
I know.
So that was so awesome from it because she got to see, us work, for your wedding, being able to see our process, how we go about our demeanor and the way that we are. No, that was huge. But getting to honestly get to work with photo was and getting to know them really well, that made the rest of the other 2 days like extremely easy for me. From my perspective, and they respected everything that we did. We respected everything that they were doing, and we were just one team. And I think that's the most important part when you have photo and video and not like part of the same company.
Right.
It's like you want them to be able to gel together and work along with one another.
I mean, it felt like you guys were one company, to be honest, like from a bride and a groom perspective, like you guys were so cohesive and everything. It was like amazing. It seemed like you'd worked 20 weddings together before and you had just met. So that was pretty cool to see and amazing as a bride because you don't know how vendors are going to get along. But I hoped, and that's why I say personality. I think for me, it was like the biggest thing when picking my vendors because like, I'm throwing them into, a villa. Like obviously it's a hotel, they have all the rooms, but you're throwing them together. They're going to be together the whole time, like doing all this stuff. And for them to just work so seamlessly together was just incredible. So.
And that's huge. Just having that servanthood mentality of, being there and it just made the whole process so much easier for me and Cody, who I brought along. It was awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. How did your week look like?
Ooh, well,
from a vendor perspective of it, like, give me the logistics of that.
The week, our flight got delayed, and so we lost a day.
No, wait, really?
Yes.
I was like, Javier, you have to be here, please. Like, I will send a plane, a train, whatever I have to do to be here by
full on train.
I mean, you guys went above and beyond everything.
I love it.
It was to get out of Tampa was a pain in the butt, but we got out of Tampa. We lost a day, unfortunately, to ourselves for Cody and I. But however, when we got there, we landed on Wednesday. We took advantage of that full day. But then really just like, I didn't know what to expect, to be honest. Like I heard everything, but I haven't seen it yet.
Right.
And so until I got to actually experience it, I was like, whoa, this is insane what we were doing. So from the welcome party, for, starting out when you guys are getting ready in the hotel, then heading down to Amalfi, and then getting in the Riva.
The Riva, yeah.
The Riva, and then heading over to the welcome party. It was just insane. And each of those moments, I was just appreciating everything. I was just like, whoa, like just capturing it. And ultimately, again, it's just seeing you and Nick having fun, your family having fun, being laid back, because that makes us even more confident, honestly, to being behind the camera, because then, hey, you guys are relaxed, you guys are chill. Yeah. It's going to show great on camera. Yeah. And it surely did. But it was absolutely insane. I know for me, I was like, wow, this is an experience for sure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for vendors who just got booked a destination wedding?
So if you are doing video, The biggest thing I would say is like pack light. If you're doing video, I know I've condensed my kit since then. I still have the cinema cameras that I use for the wedding. However, having just smaller cameras, a little bit more nimble, will not tire us out as fast, but allowing us to be just more creative. Now you can do certain things you probably wouldn't have been able to do because the other camera is too heavy or something like that. But the next thing I would say for sure is, even though I was on Google and I was looking at wedding films in the Amalfi and even of the venue, it still didn't do it justice until you were there. So if you're doing a wedding in the Amalfi Coast, make sure you're in the stair steppers.
Yes. Definitely.
Yeah. I was not prepared for that.
Yeah. And it
You're like, I wasn't prepared for how beautiful. No, the stairs.
And it wasn't just like we did, the events. It was like we did photo shoots before the event. So it was like long
That's
hours.
so
like
iconic.
Yes.
These guys, I'm like, oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine like with the cameras and you guys were like the biggest troopers ever. So
yeah, we were, man, Cody and I, like, luckily we were tall, big
Yes.
guys that we were quick on our feet. But ultimately it was just, I would say the biggest thing to prepare for is like, hey, make sure you do stair steps
Yes.
on the Amalfi Coast.
I know.
I
so
was not
funny.
expecting that
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
And make sure you pack like a tourist and don't be like me, pack jeans.
Yeah. We had to warn our guests. We're like, yeah, by the way, like, we know we're in Italy, we know this is amazing, but like, there's like a, walk up to the venue and like, there's not a road. So like, it's crazy to think about like our vendors that got our stage up there. It's just like
Yes.
wild to think the florals, all that stuff, like how it gets to the venue.
Because the pathway
That's
is so
insane.
narrow.
It's so narrow.
So
and
narrow.
It's not, you can't take a car. It's these little transporters. it's wild.
And the villa is pretty much
is
all the way at the
great.
top,
Yes,
at
it
the
is.
peak. And so, yeah. And luckily our villa was really close.
Yeah.
It was only a 5-minute walk.
Yeah, that's why we
Luckily.
picked that villa, because it was right there. Yeah.
But I was not prepared for that part.
Oops.
And so, anytime anyone goes to the Amalfi, it's like, get ready.
Yeah.
It's almost like that Instagram, like photo, like
Yes.
reality versus what you see. Yeah,
Yes.
that was me.
Yeah.
But I loved every ounce of it. Had a lot of fun. But the other tip would probably be is just, try to plan ahead as much as you can in terms of the vision, having your creative questionnaire, and just thinking of what the final video will look like for the couple. And don't be afraid to say that you've never been there.
Yeah.
Like, can you give me more information?
Yeah.
And if you are working with a photography team that has already been out there, like, reach out to them. I reached out to Joseph and Andrea.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, I'm not bringing any lights. By any chance, do you guys have any lights that you're bringing with you? And they were, and we used those for the toast, and that came in handy, and also for the welcome party as well. I'm like, so even if you don't have the gear, reach out to those that you may be working with, and collaborate in the process.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
So kind of switching topics, I heard you had a very interesting ceremony.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes. We really wanted to share with our guest, the importance of having Christ at like the center of your marriage. And that was really important to Nick and I, and our pastor from home couldn't come to Italy. And so when looking of how to write a ceremony or how to do that, I know our officiant, he'd done a ton of weddings, but we really wanted to make it that God first, and then, our marriage. And that was going to be the center of our marriage. And that was important. So we were listening to a podcast, Zoe Church out in LA, Chad Veach. We love him. He's one of our favorite pastors. He had a guest preacher, and I hope I'm saying this right. It's Levi Lusko. And it was part of their How to Love series. And the sermon was called The Secret to a Fruitful Marriage. And when we were listening to it, we weren't even really thinking about the ceremony at the time, but it started to give all this imagery about comparing a marriage to a vine, and how to tend the vine, how to cultivate the vine, and how much work you have to put in. And through all that, at the end of the sermon, the overarching message is that, God is at the center of your marriage, and that is first and foremost, and tending that vine, and how to have a fruitful marriage and to grow those fruits, God has to be at the center. And he used the imagery of every winery, or most wineries actually have a rose bush at the front of the winery, and it protects the winery. So if any disease goes to hit the wine, it'll hit the rose bush first, and then we'll go on. So that was really important to us. And so that imagery of having God as the rose bush in our marriage, and tending to the vine, and being in Italy, being in, wine country, and being surrounded, that was really important. So we used that sermon to write it. And that was something that was like so special to us, because, we can be here and we can be celebrating and we can have all this lavish things, but we really wanted to make sure that our guests, saw our love for God and how important that was to us and as a couple, and, have so many successful marriages in, among us guests, and them, coaching and teaching us that inspiration. We wanted that to be heard. And that was something that was like really important to me that I don't really think we've ever talked about or really shown. I've done, I have a wedding TikTok. I've done a few things like that on there, but that was something that was like really important and really, I think, one of the coolest parts of the wedding that you don't really get to see on social media. So
yeah. Absolutely. And it transcends because, the part of this whole event is the union that you guys are doing, the covenant that you're making in front of everybody, your family, your friends, and the ceremony is really the highlight of the whole thing. It's such a special time that you have everybody there.
Yeah, it ties everything together.
Absolutely. And I just love that you bring that up too as well, because it's very intentional. Sometimes it gets overlooked, especially when you have such a for example, a wedding weekend that's filled with so many things, but the most important one is the ceremony, is that keeping God at the center of your marriage. And that's such a beautiful thing.
Yes. Well, thank you. It was really, really special, and we're very blessed and thankful. And, just cool that one of my favorite, again, like parts of the wedding was, getting to share our love for God, and then also getting to share our love for travel. If you're thinking about a destination wedding, like Nick and I, one of the biggest parts as a couple that, kind of defines us is like the places that we've traveled and the adventures that we've gotten to go on. And that to us is so important. And after the wedding, so many people, a lot of our like elder, like aunts and uncles, like they came up to us and they were like, we would never have traveled to Italy or travel alone. And now we're already planning another trip. And like Nick and I love that we got to share that and share our passions. And it was that was a really cool aspect that you don't really think about when you're planning. Like you love to share it, but then, to share that passion is really cool. So
I love that.
Yeah.
What were some of the most memorable moments from the weekend?
Yeah. So obviously one, like I said, the moment in Amalfi when, it was raining and we jumped out on the stairs and everybody came out. I mean, that was just unforgettable. I think pulling up in the Riva, I was like laughing. Nick like finally had his James Bond moment because, it was like,
I need to hear about the James Bond moment.
So we went back and forth. We decided how are we going to go? We had all our guests arrive on, this bigger boat. And then Nick was like, do we go with the friends and family? I was like, let's like have an entrance. Like this is like the moment we are like, so we got this really old school Riva boat. It was so cool. We pulled up, there was like a beautiful sunset and we arrived and, we had this awesome song playing and all of our guests were there, family were waving and we got to make our entrance. So that was really, really cool.
That's so iconic.
That was insane.
Yeah. So that was really cool. But I mean, my favorite moment, like hands down, was definitely seeing Nick's face when I walked down the aisle and just, seeing how emotional he was, how emotional, his family was and my family, and just seeing all of our friends and family. Like, I think one of the brides said, like, when you're like there, like, don't like take a second and like look out at the audience. And like I told that to Nick before, and we like made a very cautious effort to like look out when we were like during our ceremony, and just being like, one, how thankful we were that people literally traveled all the way to Italy to like celebrate our love with us, and just like how thankful we are like, to get to do this and be here and be in this moment. And that was like something we really like, we're thankful for. And it was one of definitely my favorite moments. So
yeah, I love that during ceremonies when the officiant says like, okay, I want you guys to like take a second, look at everybody who's here, just be thankful and appreciative. And it just kind of helps you slow down too for a second. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, hold on, let's look out. Let's see everybody. Hi.
Yes. Take a moment.
Thank you for being here today.
Yes.
But that's so fun. I love that.
I wanted to highlight too, one of the memorable moments for me was hearing your vows and the way that you highlighted like each one of the most important moments in your life, like with Nick, and comparing that, that was so special.
Oh, thank you.
I was like, whoa, that's just insane.
Thanks. It was important to me. I mean, Nick really truly does remind me of all the important men in my life, and I think some that couldn't be there that have passed away, and he's gotten to meet them, and it just I knew like he does remind me of those, and I think to highlight them, it was cool. My family love it made them cherish the ones we've lost and just get that moment. So. Oh, thank you. I loved it. That makes me blush. I've said that a few times.
I got so emotional during your wedding because I'm an emotional human being. This is why I can only do an emotional transaction.
We're creatives, okay? Yes. We're emotional.
It's like my wife is like, when I'm watching the vows, like I had like you watch the video, so I want to get her approval.
Yes.
Like, do you like this? And she's usually not very like, She watched yours. She was just crying. She was like, oh my goodness, this is insane. Like,
I'm gonna cry again.
And so it was huge. I'm like, well, my wife is crying. Okay, we got the approval.
Sold. I got it. Send it
She's like,
off.
I'll be like, this hits the music, everything. I was like, yes.
Oh yeah, and I love too, Javier. That was one of my favorite things too. Is like you asked me about the music, like, hey, like for the what vibe do you want for like like that, and me being a music person, I was like, I didn't even think about it. I was like, oh, this is so important. I love that he got my approval for that, like not approval, but you like my opinion on that, which was that was cool.
That's the whole tone. Yeah, I love that.
You know what's really cool now, like looking back, what I really learned too, all from like editing and putting that together, is like this is where we're like, for me, everything kind of shifted in editing, where it's like, hey, we're crafting a story and it's a full narrative.
Yeah.
And let's find the music that highlights that moment the most, rather than trying to find a song to match, the visuals with. Is like, no, we're creating a score is what we call it, to highlight that moment that's going on. And it just fits so well for the ceremony when it went from one part to the next. Yeah. That was just insane.
It was really cool. And the speeches too, like the music when you were like, it just hit at the right points. And like, even watching it today before I came, like, it's just, the music with how you did it and the overlay, it just, you did the most amazing job.
Like once you, like, even where I believe it was Nick's speech, that then the next shot introduces you walking down the aisle.
Yes.
Like that was just huge. And it was, the music just goes right with it.
Yes.
I'll make sure to insert it in.
That
way people can experience it.
It'll be in the show notes, everybody.
Yes. There we go.
And we will be watching it after these cameras. After the mics turn off.
Yes.
There we go.
So kind of to wrap things up, do you have any advice for anybody who wants to do an Italy wedding or just a destination wedding in general?
Do it. Absolutely do it. Like I said, I think it was so cool just to, bring everybody to this place where, they might not have traveled otherwise, or they might not be there, and they get to experience this, beautiful place and celebrate your love. One thing I didn't touch on this whole time was, the town of Ravello. It was up above Amalfi, and it was kind of a small town. And, at first we're like, oh, we hope, people like it because it's not right on the water. And it was one of when you talk about my favorite parts, my favorite part would be like walking into the town and like, you'd be at a cafe and it's the whole wedding party. Like the entire square is everybody in the wedding, and people are like getting together. And so like everybody kind of became friends and became family, like before the wedding even started and even after. And like, that was so cool. And like, that's really what you get with a destination wedding is you get that, like, not camaraderie. That's not the right word, but like that sense of all being together and closeness. And I think that sometimes can get lost if you're not doing a destination wedding. So that's a really cool aspect of a destination wedding that, people look over. So that's like my biggest advice is just do it. Cause I would do it all over again tomorrow. I still am in my post-wedding blue era, which it's a year plus later.
I love it.
So what's your favorite Bible verse?
Okay, so this is not only my favorite Bible verse in life, but I think it really applies to brides as you're planning. Philippians 4:6-7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Let your requests be known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understandings, will guard your hearts and your minds in Jesus Christ. And I love that verse, obviously, for life in general. And just, I'm someone that struggles with anxiety. And I think I always turn to that verse. I always have it written. I always have to see it in the words, but it's so true. And also just as you're planning, there are those stressful moments, and just a reminder that even if you're stressed about something, just say a prayer. Like I pray about everything to the simplest things of, hey, I'm stressed about my flowers. Like just say a prayer. And it's so important. I know that's like so in today's day and age to even say that, but I just think it's so important. And that's my favorite.
It is. You just got to give it all to God.
Give it all to God.
He shows up in mighty ways.
Yes, he does.
And he's always faithful.
Yes. Amen.
I love it. Chelsea, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We had the best time with you, and thank you for talking all about your dream Italy wedding. Oh my gosh, I know we all are dreaming of that. Where can they find you on social media?
So at CL Pezzola on Instagram, and then my wedding TikTok is C_into my life. So they do a lot of wedding stuff there. I think Javier, our video is at like 2 million almost.
What?
Yes.
What?
So yes.
Hold on, we're recapping.
Yes.
Let's go.
Yes.
I love it. Javi, where can they find you?
At sundial.creatives on Instagram.
And you can find me at Ashley Jade Photography LLC on Instagram and TikTok. And you can find us, because we're really cool.
They are.
At the 2717 podcast, 27 the numbers, 17 spelled out on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks guys for watching. Give us a 5-star review. We will be off next week, but we'll see you the Monday after that. And yeah,
All right. Peace.
That's all. Bye.